Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hi everyone and welcome to episode 64 of the English with Kirsty podcast. I'm not going to talk a long time today because I have a sore throat and I don't want you to hear that. But fortunately the interview for today has already been recorded, so I won't have a sore throat on the interview. The interview is with Andrea Hartenfeller. She works in HR, so we're talking about applying for jobs, some of the mistakes people make with their CVs, some of the differences between English and German CVs, what's appropriate, what people should be doing, what things they can leave out, and what definitely needs to be there on an English CV. And Andrea shares a bit about her experience, about some of the things that she's seen whilst working in the recruitment field. So if you want to find out more about Andrea, you can come to the show notes page, which is www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 64. And other than that, I will just let you get on with listening to the interview. So I hope you find it helpful. Have a good week and have fun learning English. Well, thank you for joining us on the podcast today. I'm looking forward to hearing your tips and to finding out what you have to say about these questions that I prepared for you. Firstly, could you tell me a bit about what you think are the main differences between English and German CVs in terms of the layout, things to add and things to delete, or things that aren't necessary?
Yeah, so, when I look at how CVs have developed over the last 10, 15 years, I have to say that concerning the layout, the difference between German and English style is only very small nowadays. German CVs used to have everything in chronological order, basically starting with, when you first started school and then worked your way up until you had your final exams and things like that. And then you started with your first job and, if an HR professional wanted to see what you were doing now, they had to sometimes even turn the page over and then land on page 2. Whereas the English CVs had it the other way around. So you started with the thing you were currently doing and then, on page 2, you had your time at school or whatever. But, for the past 5, 6, 7 years roundabout, German tradition is more like, doing that the English way as well. So putting your current job first and then just going backwards in time. So, and apart from that, an important thing on both types of CV is basically that you put, your name and your contact details on every page that you have. So in case it gets printed out and a page gets lost, people can still, take it back to where it belongs. One thing that's very English, I would say is, that you put a summary on top of your CV, more or less saying, hey, I'm HR professional with 10 years of experience in small to medium-sized companies, and this is my next career goal. Whereas in a German CV, you wouldn't do that. However, a lot of people, in the German tradition would put in, like, their parents' names, the names of their siblings. I wouldn't recommend that at all, not even in German CVs anymore, because it's really old-fashioned.
And how about the photos? Is it still common on German CVs to include a picture?
Well, a lot of people still do it. However, there's various ways to do that. So some people don't really include it in the CV, but have it in a separate file. And a lot of people have stopped using photos in their applications. I personally have stopped using photos in my applications, and I didn't experience any difference in terms of getting invited to an interview or not. So you don't really have to put the photo in. But if you do in Germany, it should be a really, really nice professional looking photo. So please no selfies or anything like that, and then not your Facebook profile picture or anything, but just take the time, have a photographer work on it.
Yeah, and in England it's not really necessary unless you're an actor or an actress and you're showing why you would be suitable for a specific part or something like that, where they really need to see what you look like. But in England it's not something you need to worry about including on your CV.
But if you leave it, if you don't put it in when you apply for a company in Germany, even if you apply in English because it's an international company, if you don't have a photo, that in itself is no reason to invite you or not invite you, so that's fine.
That's good. So what do you think about qualifications? Should people try to translate their qualifications or describe them or give the name and a translation? What would you advise people to do?
I think it would be good if, it depends. Like, for example, if you also send in a certificate with your application, and the certificate, for example, is in German, then it would be good that in the CV you at least keep the German name of the certificate, but then, for example, in brackets or in just in another line, write, this is the translation of this. For example, you have a certificate as, I don't know, whatever, Erzieherin, so kindergarten teacher, something. So you should at least put a rough translation there so that people know what you mean.
Yeah.
And it same basically goes for job titles. I mean, at the moment, my current job title, for example, is HR manager, so I wouldn't have to translate that. Yeah, but if I use it, if it were something else, it would be good if I would just translate it.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's good to include the original as well, because otherwise the person may well speak German, and if it's an international company, they may need to know what it is. And also, if you translate, then people obviously understand what it is, but if you try to translate and don't put the original, then you have the problem that that qualification may not exist in English, and so people may have no idea what you're talking about.
I mean, that's especially the case with when you completed one of the typical German 3-year apprenticeships. The official translation that, for example, the Chamber of Commerce offers you is that you are a bachelor professional. Now, the problem with this expression is that nobody in England knows what that is. Yeah, and people read bachelor and they think you've been to college or university, which in fact you haven't. So you need to be a bit careful with using simple translations. So it's better to just describe what you've been doing.
That's the same with school qualifications as well, because the school qualifications in the different countries are different. So you may find something that's an equivalent, but it's not going to be the exact same qualification.
Yes, absolutely.
So you've been looking at CVs for a long time in your experience as an HR manager. What would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that you see? What are the things that people do that make you want to put the CV to the bottom of the pile?
Well, sometimes it's things that you don't really find out when you look at the CV for the first time, but things that you find out when you start interviewing people. One common mistake is that people don't quite seem to know how to describe their level of foreign languages. Yeah? So I've had someone tell me that he was bilingual, German and English, and it turned out in the end that his English was just the normal school English that you would have, and he just put bilingual because he thought that would be better and increase his chances to get the job. Yeah? And then his English actually was rubbish. So you need to be a bit careful with that. What I would do in that case, really look at whether you like it or not, but the European framework for languages, the A1, A2, etc., that's usually quite good. Yeah? And it's okay to downgrade your language skills a little bit, but that's better than the other way around. And also with other skills you might be having. And what I also sometimes see is that because people a lot of them have read that, for example, in the UK, you can, it seems to be easier to find a job because, you have less formal qualifications, but things that, are usually called like your transferable skills.
Yeah.
And some people think that, whatever they've done as a hobby, being a trainer in the sports club or something already qualifies them, to take a leadership role in a company. So you need to be a bit careful with, what you really can transfer into your new job. So, you shouldn't overdo it.
No, because ultimately then you're wasting the employer's time and your own, because if you lie or you exaggerate, then you're going to be found out either at the interview or even later. But you can't keep pretending that you're better than you are for too long.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, if I do budgets for my local library and the library has something like 500 books, that's totally different than applying for head of finance at a large company. I mean, people usually don't do it in that way, but still rather often you find, especially when somebody desperately wants to break into a certain industry, that they say, oh, but this has been my hobby for so many years, so I already know everything, and this is what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the voluntary work can be included if you're demonstrating a point, but not if you're going for a professional role or a role where years of experience are required.
Yeah. So it's a good thing to show that you have an interest in something, but it doesn't. It's just with translations, often you just have to build a bridge because you just can't do it directly.
Yeah, that's true. Do you have any more tips that you'd like to include, or is that what you'd like to say on the?
Well, I mean, obviously that's one thing that should be obvious, but please do spell checking before sending your stuff off. And make sure that your name is spelled correctly and the email address you put on your CV, that is actually an email address that you're using, things like that. It should be obvious, but a lot of people forget about that.
It's often the little things, isn't it? Particularly if you're doing a lot of applications, it's easy to get a bit sloppy towards the end, but this is the first time that the potential employer comes across you and knows anything about you, so you really need to make the best impression possible.
And you shouldn't make the mistake and think that only for office jobs it's relevant that your spelling is correct, because, for example, if you're a programmer and you need to write decent code, you need to write decent documentation, and so and if you make spelling mistakes in your code, in the end it doesn't work either. Yeah. So it also helps for other jobs that you look at your spelling and grammar.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, thank you for your time. Thank you for those tips.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
It's been good talking to you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.